always so fun to work on the stream and in the live Facebook, but I'm happy that you're here and hope that if you're catching this in the replay or otherwise, that it's all working for you. It looks like things are working for me here today too. So welcome everyone. We'll give folks just a few minutes to kind of connect and check back in and find their way to this. If you're catching the live replay, you're welcome to catch all the other live replays as well for this. We're doing this all month long, Make and Meditate, and each week we're exploring just one simple thing. Last week we explored color. This week we're exploring line, and the weeks after that are shape and space. So in part of mindfulness, it's about really just attuning yourself to just one simple thing, paying attention on purpose to that one simple thing. So we're going to resist all the distraction of color here today, and we're just going to focus on line. So just while folks are kind of coming in and getting connected here, feel free to pop something in the comments too if you have any questions in the live feed. I'll just talk just really briefly about supplies before we get creating and get going. It's my goal, it's my mission to make this really simple. I really don't want you to feel burdened by this in any way or stifled by the supplies that you need to have. So I'm always saying, bring your favorite supplies. I'm going to be working with just black ink today and my sketchbook. If you have pencil crayons, like actual crayons, all of that sort of thing, anything will work. Watercolors, acrylic, we're going to be making lines. You could work simply with a pencil and a piece of paper if you want today too. So please don't let that be a barrier for you in any way. This is going to take about 45 minutes for us to walk through. Last week when we did this, everybody was like, oh my gosh, that was the fastest 45 minutes ever. And that's what happens when you slow down and you pay attention. There's so much that you really soak in that's often the experience that will happen for people. We're going to do about 10 minutes of a meditation, and then the rest of it we're going to leave up to art making. And we're probably going to do 2 kind of simple line sketches once we come out of our meditation. But anybody who's worked with me knows I really love poetry, and I find poetry is one of the most simple, beautiful ways for us just to ground ourselves and just whoosh, like settle in on the moment. And so I have a poem for you here today that I'm going to read to you right now as a start to our creative practice. It's called Initiation Song, and it's from Ursula Le Guin. Please bring strange things. Please come bringing new things. Let very old things come into your hands. Let what you do not know come to your eyes. Let desert sand harden your feet. Let the arch of your feet be the mountains. Let the path of your fingertips be your maps, and the way you go be the lines on your palms. Let there be deep snow in your in-breathing, and your out-breath be the shining of ice. May your mouth contain the shapes of strange worlds. May you smell food cooking you have not eaten. May the spring of a foreign river be your navel. May your soul be at home where there are no houses. Walk carefully, well loved one. Walk mindfully, well loved one. Walk fearlessly, well loved one. Return with us. Return to us. Always be coming home. And again, that's Initiation Song by Ursula Le Guin. So I chose that for us here today as a way for us to begin thinking about coming home, or return to home, a place where we are and where we're going to be. And what better place to come and settle into home than to our breath. So if it feels right, I want to invite you to close your eyes. At some point in this meditation, you may choose to open your eyes, or you may choose to keep your eyes closed. So take a deep breath and just settle wherever you are. Just feel yourself arrive to this moment. Feel the shifting and the transition between the poem, whatever you were doing before, And now, take a breath, exhale, and just feel that transition, that movement from the energy you were in before to this settling, to this resting. Breathe. No need to do anything fancy with your breath. You can just be. Just feel yourself resting in your chair or your seat or wherever you are. Just see if you can find that point of connection, that point of touch where your weight feels kind of scooped and held. And just notice that for a moment. Just feel how it's holding you, keeping you safe, supporting you in this. Now I want to invite you again to go back to that in breath and that out breath, that inhale and that exhale, and just pay attention to that. Whatever stands out for you about that, just notice that. Maybe it might be a feeling or a sensation. Just see if you can imagine in your mind's eye, almost like a line where the breath comes in and it goes down and fills your lungs and then comes back up and out. Just allow your imagination to see that line, that sequence, that connection, however it wants to. Inhale, exhale, and just let your mind imagine that line of the air coming in, filling up your lungs, and then exhaling. And just follow that for a few breaths. Breathing and just noticing all of those lines. Breathing and just noticing all of those lines. Just keep breathing. Just notice how your imagination is a support for you in taking note of your breath and paying attention to your breath. Now I want you to imagine your breath coming in and moving down from your lungs, down to your hands, to your fingertips. Just notice that. See if you can add that line all the way down to each one of your fingertips. Sending your breath almost to your fingertips. Feeling that connection through the line from the air coming in from the external into your lungs and then down to your breath, into your fingertips, and then back out. Now, at this point, I want to encourage you to turn your attention and pay attention to your hands, to your fingertips. And again, you may want to open your eyes at this point, or you may want to keep them closed. But basically what we're going to do is as we breathe, we're going to run our thumbs down through each fingertip. Slowly, just following the line of each finger. Exhaling. Running our fingers down on the inhale. Pausing to exhale. And we're just going to repeat that for a few times. So you might want to find your own rhythm of your inhale and your exhale, but I want you to keep imagining those lines running down your fingers and just feel them. Feel the lines of your fingers. And just following your breath, following the line of your breath and the line of your fingers, and just noticing them. Not doing anything, not working towards anything, just noticing them, noticing the line of your breath and of your fingers. You can choose to focus on whatever part of this works for you. It might be the touch, the sensation of your fingers on your thumbs. It might be the imaginative qualities of it. It might just be actually your breath. Whatever is most anchoring for you is what you should pay attention to. We don't have to do anything or try in any way right now. All we have to do is breathe. If it feels right, feel just moving your fingers, just kind of following the impulse of moving your fingers. If you want to stay with kind of the fingertip touch, that's fine too. But if it feels right, you might want to invite some impulse in and see if you can find some rhythm with your breath and just moving your fingers, playing with those lines in your fingers. Moving them however feels right. Just trusting your impulse. Just stay with your breath or whatever movement you have going. Just be with it for just a little bit longer. It's okay if you get distracted or start thinking otherwise. When you notice yourself moving away from your hands or your breath or whatever anchor you're focusing on, just notice it and bring it back. That's the beautiful part of meditation is we can always come back, and every time we come back to whatever it is we're paying attention to, we're noticing ourselves in a new way. We're building a new relationship to ourselves. And so we just keep breathing. In a moment, I'm going to ask you just to check in with yourself. Just notice the sense, the state that you're in, the feeling of your hands, maybe, an emotion that's happening for you, maybe. Just how are you feeling right now in this moment? Just to check in with yourself. Noting that, breathing with that, with a little bit more intention. And whenever it feels right, Just slowly opening our eyes and coming back and transitioning into the next part of this process. And just noticing the shift between that. Sorry. Just going to take a moment and get my screen set up for you here. So if you want to just take a moment and follow your breath, and just start moving and thinking about moving towards your salt supplies, whatever you need to do to start transitioning into the art making. Just give yourself some permission to move slowly, thoughtfully. So we're going to start. I've got my camera working a little bit better here today. I'm hoping that it will stay with me. It seems to be like as soon as I start streaming live on Facebook, it gets a bit laggy, but I think we'll be able to make it work here. So I want us to go back to that imagination, that place we had with our breath, where we were breathing and we were connecting with our breath and we were imagining our breath coming in and down through ourselves. And I want us just to go back to that breathing part of ourselves. And just with whatever color medium you choose, with whatever feels right for you. Oh dear, my screen really is unhappy as soon as I start streaming here. I'll keep it there and see if it picks up. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to hold the tip of our pencil or our paintbrush or whatever it is that we have, just further back. Just instead of holding it very close by, I want you just to kind of hold it back. We're going to see if we can go back and just connect with that breath. And we're just going to make lines very slowly on our page and just make a series of lines in whatever way that feels like we can do. So I'm just going to start with mine. I'm going to take a moment and resettle, let go of distractions. You're welcome to do this in your own time. I'm just making lines on my page. You may want to just think of each line as a breath. But think of it as an intentional act to just make a again, our hand is held back further on the paintbrush. We're just letting go of the control aspect of it that sometimes we show up. This isn't a ruler exercise. This is an exercise of lines, of being and feeling the connection between your hand and the lines. Just breathing, and we're just filling our page with lines is all we are doing. Notice how the medium moves on the page. Notice your thoughts about your lines as they are going. Maybe you have a judgment or a thought or something going on that is preventing you from just being with the lines on your page. And if that's happening, that's okay. Sometimes we just need to be our own coach and remind ourselves that we're just making lines. It's not a masterpiece. It's okay. So your page might be bigger or smaller than mine. It's okay. If you want to keep adding lines or extending lines, just be purposeful with how you're doing your lines. Just breathing with each line, noticing how simple it can be just to make a line. Noticing how each line has its own unique little personality going on. It's different. Again, we don't have rulers out. We've purposely let go of control and have our hands way far back. So each line is just moving. You can think about changing directions of lines. Just paying attention to how simple this is. One of the things I love the most, especially if you work in a sketchbook or otherwise, is just to think about how just moments ago this was a blank page. And now this page has lines on it. That's all it has is lines. I could layer on a judgment about if these are good lines or bad lines. But the reality is if you have filled your sketchbook with something, you have courageously made something where there wasn't something before. It's almost like a voice, a way to speak. Just to make lines is like making your mark in this world. It's an act that is intentional. So I'll let you just keep playing with your lines in whatever way feels right. I have almost saturated my page here. But you could have moved to making vertical lines or layering lines or longer lines. And so if you can, just find in the next minute or so, minute or two even, just a place to bring this line exercise to a close. And we're going to shift gears and we're going to spend some time, the rest of our time in a different exercise. Just as you find a way to close that. Again, just as we had transitioned with our breath and from the poem to this, I want us to just pay attention to the transition between pieces. So just when you're done, just maybe put your tool down that you're using, your mark making tool, and just pause and just look at it and find your breath again. And notice any thoughts, any thinking part of yourself, any judgments you want to make. How interesting that we want to evaluate this work already, or not, that we are resisting the urge to do that, or the patterns of thinking to do that. And just notice like a touch of nuance in your piece. Maybe something unexpected, something useful, something surprising, something that conjures a feeling for you. Isn't it interesting to think that we can just fill a page of sketchbook with lines and it can trigger us or elicit some response in us in some way? How crazy to think that just lines, even our habits of thinking and our patterns of thinking, can bubble up and we can have a great story about what kind of person we are because of how we made lines on a page. And so we're going to transition further away from that. And you might want to just reconnect with your breath. You might want to close your eyes or touch your fingers again. Do something to just shift back into your body and be with here and let that piece go. For me, moving my hands and my fingers, or even just following my impulse of moving, really brings me back into my body and takes me out of the thinking part or the kind of busybody part of me that wants to elicit control or, do something. And it helps me get back into my body. So sometimes even just when I'm creating, if I find I'm getting too fixated, too focused on something, I will pause and turn my body away from my work, and I will just move my arms for a little bit or move my hands for a little bit, just to see if I can reconnect with that kind of inner embodiment, that impulse. And so our next exercise that we're going to do is we're going to be paying attention to just whatever you have in your immediate surroundings in front of you. I'm going to be paying attention to the mess that I have on my desk in front of here that you can't see right now, but I have ink bottles, I have glass jars, I've got paint brushes, I've got kind of pencils and that sort of thing, paper stacked up in the background. And so I'm going to spend a moment, and so just kind of bring your gaze just beyond your sketchbook, wherever you are, whatever happens to be in front of you. If what's in front of you happens to be, a window, or what's on your kitchen table or your workspace, we're just going to look there. And before we even pick up our tool, we're just going to start to notice only lines, the vertical lines, the horizontal lines, adjacent lines. Instead of seeing shape or color, I just want you to attune yourself to some of the lines that are around you, just in this gaze, just in front of you. Just paying attention to lines, not drawing yet. You don't have to do anything yet. You're just paying attention. And so the invitation is, again, for you to hold your paintbrush, your tool, if it's your marker or your pencil or whatever, hold it further up so that there's less likelihood to feel like you want to be kind of focused or in control. We're trying to really stay with our body with this. So I wanted to encourage you just to hold your pencil or your paintbrush or your pencil, whatever you have, very far up. And I want you just to look at your surroundings, and we're going to do a really simple sketch of what we observe in front of us using only line. We're not doing shape. We're only just thinking about line. Now, some of your lines might come together to make shapes. That's okay. The point is that we're paying attention to line only. So just you can start wherever you want. Choose maybe one spot to start and move yourself kind of, if you want to go left or right to left or top to bottom. But just think about this being a sketch of just the lines in front of you. Some of the lines are going to be curvy. Just thinking in very simple lines. We don't have to worry about scale or proportion or dimension. It almost might actually even look childlike because, again, our hands are very far back. And we have very little control. We're not paying attention to gradient. We're not paying attention to space. We're only paying attention to line. And so again, just breathing, just noticing that flow of breath that's your companion. Just notice if your grip has tightened in any way, or if your thoughts have tightened in any way, or loosened. It's almost as though we have a little landscape in front of us. In this landscape, we're just capturing first using line. What a habit to cultivate, to just take a deep inhale through your nose every now and then, and then exhale. When we've surrendered control like this through holding our implement, our tool further back, it's permission to just observe and use this as an exercise of observing rather than a judgment of our skill. No one expects you to make beautiful things when you're holding it, your tools, when you have very little influence or control over your tools. When we create this way, we're almost participating in a third space of sorts. Not fully ourselves, not fully of the world, but a bridge in between the two. I have a lot of things on my desk in front of me. You might have less, and that's okay. You could do it again on another page if you wanted. You could just simply turn your gaze a little bit further to the left and broaden kind of the space. Just move your body a bit or move your head even a bit to broaden the palette of what you're observing. And just an intentional breath just to keep fueling you, helping you, moving you from this breath to the next breath. Noticing if any tightness has kind of crept in. Sometimes as we create, we might start really loose and soft and then tighten up. Our grip might have tightened. And so we want to just attune back to loosening up. Breathing, letting go of tension. Letting go of desire. Again, I have compressed even just part of what I'm seeing in the space. I'm not worrying too much about proportion or distance between objects. I'm just capturing the lines. I'm just looking to capture the lines that I'm observing. But if this was an exercise about space, we might be attuning ourselves more to the space between things, the space in things. So I've already kind of expanded what I'm seeing in my gaze and adding more things in. And so again, just notice if you're already having thoughts about this being good or this being bad or right or wrong. Just notice how quickly we can come to judgments and conclusions. or force ourselves to come to judgments and conclusions about whatever we observe. If instead we could just notice lines, make lines, and not bother with the judgment, the experience of it shifts. And typically, what I hear from people is that they want to make art, and then they make art, and then they sometimes feel frustrated with the art that they make because they want it to be better. They thought it was going to look differently. They had an idea in their head, and it didn't come out the way they wanted. They compared their work to other people's work. On and on. I think you know what I'm talking about. All of us have done that. But instead, if we could let go of the attachment to it, or let go of our need to compare it or strive with it, what we would find is that the experience of making the art just was. And it might have been relaxing, and it might have been interesting, and it might have been many things. And then at the end is sometimes where we tarnish it and go back and paint it with a brush around it being, oh, this is ugly, or this is silly, or what was I even doing? And threaten to undermine the whole experience through our own judgment. A very human thing to do. So we just have a few moments left in our creative exercise. You may want to continue on and create. I'm going to place my paintbrush down. I'm going to come back to my impulse with my fingers and feel the lines in my fingers. Reconnect with your breath. Transitioning from the creation you made, letting go of all the thoughts, the judgments, the ideas you had about it. And staying perhaps with curiosity rather than judgment might be a worthy thing to do. Curious about your reactions, curious about what you did, curious about how that time unfolded for you. So we see how we just explored line today. We explored the line of our breath, imagining the line coming in, imagining it being inside of us, using our mind's eye and our imagination to help us make that connection that's happening all the time around us. Every second of every day, we are taking in and breathing and letting things out. And so using our imagination and the aid of a line to help us feel that connection. And then exploring the line down our arms and into our fingers and our hands. And seeing how that breath can fuel impulse and fuel the actions of our hands. Seeing how the simple action of just making lines on our page can be a way to slow down, to be with our breath, to notice that critical part of ourselves, or that thinking part of ourselves, or distractions, or whatever the layers of thought are that can happen over even something as simple as lines. And then noticing what happens when we just attune ourselves to just lines in our environment. Think of simple everyday things in front of us that we probably take for granted, but now we see with a different eye where we think about them in terms of line. So what we've done is we've paid attention in the present moment, non-judgmentally, and we've had an awareness arise around that. And that's essentially what mindfulness is in practice. That's essentially what it means to be attuned and practice in a meditation or otherwise. So thanks for being here. Thanks for trusting me in the process. Thanks again for your ongoing patience with my technology. I was patient with it and it worked. So that was wonderful. I hope, well, my fingers crossed it will work next week for me too. I'll continue to try to work through the kinks of that. And thanks for being here, everybody. Feel free to share your images, your lines, your thoughts, even just what the experience was like. Even if you don't want to share your images, I'd love to just hear what the experience was like for you. You could type that in the group and anywhere, because it's always helpful for us when we know, like, oh, I'm not the only one who made lines on a page and then that turned into this or that sort of thing. So and next week, next Wednesday, we will be exploring just shape. So we've done color, we've done line, and next week we're just going to explore shape, and you're welcome to bring whatever your favorite medium is to that, and that will be fun. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week and in the Facebook group in the interim, and take a deep breath for me wherever you are, okay?